world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Please mute your microphones if you haven't already done so. We suggest you change to speaker view, which is in the right-hand corner, and that'll put whoever's speaking in a big picture on your screen. Our invocation today will be led by Michael Perez, Business Development Manager, Gateway Mortgage Group, and the pledges by John Lee, Business Advisor, Lamar University Small Business Development Center. Michael? Is Michael here?
I didn't see him on.
He was. I don't know. No, I haven't seen Michael Perez. I'm sorry. I'm singing Michael Wolf. Michael
Okay.
Perez, I have not seen.
Okay, I'll wing it then. If you'll bow your head with me, please.
I'm here.
Oh, Michael,
That's
did you want to say
Michael.
the invocation?
Michael Wolf's here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michael. I'm sorry, I had a hard time. I'm on a travel mode.
Okay. All right. I'll lead the invocation. Thank you for gathering with us today as we start this meeting off and learn about so many different things in life that bring joy to people. One of them being the arts, for sure. And we have missed that during the past year. And we're grateful to put that back a little bit in the limelight today. Thank you for the wonderful people that are in Rotary who do such great things around the world to make it better for other people. And thank you for this group of Rotarians in the Beaumont Rotary Club who mean so much to all of us. Amen. John?
I was waiting for the flag to pop up. Okay. If everybody will follow along, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, John. We're going to start with the International Service Chair for the Layettes, Dina Hughes, CEO at TAN Healthcare, to tell us a little bit about the upcoming project.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. And yes, we actually are meeting tomorrow evening at the Hotel Elegante to put together our wonderful packets, about 150 packets to send to our moms and women in Nicaragua. So this is an annual event, and this is actually, if I'm not mistaken, one of the first times we're actually having the opportunity to be together and see what that feels like. So we'll be at the Elegante tomorrow. We will have the heavy lifting around 4 o'clock, 4 to 4:30, and then around 5:30, we'll start getting everything ready. So if you want to join us and spend some time, say hello, and do some good work, we'll be at the Elegante tomorrow evening to put the packets together. So I hope we can see you there.
Thank you, Dina. Now to report on board action, Secretary Jay Wilson.
Thank you, Madam President, and good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. The board met yesterday, and I've got some updates for you. In membership, we approved the return of Amy Dansby as the CDC Economic Development Manager of the Southeast Texas Economic Development Foundation. Her classification will be Associations Economic Development. So welcome back, Amy. We also approved 2 new membership proposals. Andrew Edwards, producer at J.S. Edwards and Sherlock Insurance Agency. Classification, Insurance Casualty, proposed by Josh Smith. And Kara Timberlake, Communications Marketing Manager for the McFadden Ward House Museum. Classifications, Associations, Museum Marketing, proposed by Ashley Thornton. Our club is hosting the district conference next month, April 22nd through 24th. And we'll have registration information sent out soon, but you should know that there are some fantastic speakers On Thursday and Friday, those meetings will be held at lunch via Zoom. And attending one of those meetings will substitute for our meeting that week, as there will not be a meeting on Wednesday, April 21st. And as there was a lot of talk before the meeting officially started, we are beginning hybrid club meetings on April 7th. Members will be asked and encouraged to wear face masks, except of course when eating. We will practice social distancing as much as we are able, seating only 4 people per table. And to assist us with providing the hotel with room setups and correct meal count, we are asking that members make a reservation in advance. The choice is totally up to you. If whatever you're more comfortable with doing, you can attend in person or attend on Zoom, and we will have more details out to you shortly. That concludes the report, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Now to introduce a new member, I have Rebecca Maxwell.
It is my pleasure to introduce Carlos today. Carlos, I saw him on the call, so give us a wave, Carlos, or say hello so people can see you. I don't know if he's able to, if he's in a spot that he can speak or not.
Hi, yes. I forgot today I was going to be introduced.
Gotcha. Well, thank you.
Let's see. Can you see me now? I don't know.
Yes.
Hi. Hold on, there we go. You can see me with my face. Perfect.
Good to see you, Carlos. So this is a special introduction for me because Carlos is now a process improvement engineer at Optimus Steel, but he was first introduced to Rotary through the Lamar University Rotaract Club. So he was involved as a student within the Rotaract Club, and then now we're excited to have him transition to the Beaumont Rotary Club. Carlos also made a little bit of a name for himself when he was at Lamar as a student. He actually appeared on a nationally syndicated TV show called Picker and Ben. He was on that show to present his non-Newtonian fluid class project after some video clips from an event on campus went viral and gathered over 40 million views on social media. So he participated along with some other students, but really headed up that project with the College of Engineering. So you can actually Google Carlos's name and probably find some video clips from that project on campus at Lamar and also on the Picker and Ben TV show. Carlos, while he was a student, was also the recipient of the Robert Kimball Award given to one graduating senior for outstanding leadership and service as a male student. Now, something you may not know about Carlos personally, he was actually born in Colombia and spent most of his life being raised here in Port Neches, Texas. So we're excited to have him and his vast world experience with our Beaumont Rotary Club now. He's obviously very driven in his work, carrying on his work from a student and now as a professional. And he also loves to travel, learning about new cultures and experiencing new things. He has a total of 14 different countries that he has now visited, and I'm sure there will be many more in the future. One of the things, just as a little tidbit for people who are involved in planning club events, Carlos, on his interest in service through Rotary, he made a note of obviously serving in various club and community projects, but he said he would love to help plan, volunteer, and attend various club events from the local to international level. So if you have any club projects that you're working on, please invite Carlos to be involved. Carlos, it's wonderful to have you in our club.
Thank you, Rebecca, and welcome, Carlos.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca, for that kind introduction. Thank you so much.
Now, Carlos, already have you signed up for the flag project? So you're already.
Yes. Excellent.
Okay. And that's a great segue into the flag project. Gary Barclay, you have a report.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Cindy. I just want to thank everybody on behalf of Pat and I that signed up for Monday. Of course, that was a makeup day, but it is going to be the Vietnam War Veterans Day. So it'll be a very great day to come out and put the flags out. We do have a full roster, so we want to thank everybody that did sign up. And also we want to remind you, if you plan on picking up the flags on Sunday evening, the night before, Pat and I will be there from 5 to 6 p.m. that evening. But if you could, please call us, because we'd like to go ahead and count the flags out and have them set out for you when you get there. And that way we'll know how many people are coming. And if you're running late, we'll wait on you. So that'll be from 5 to 6 p.m. on Sunday evening. And of course, Monday morning, everybody will meet 5 o'clock at the Boy Scout office. That's it, Cindy.
Thank you, Gary. Now for an update on the health department vaccine distribution that we have going on Monday after flags. The information is supposed to be coming from the agency directly. So if you signed up for that, you should get an email directly from the Beaumont Health Department as any information to put forth on that. But please wear your volunteer Rotary shirt so we can stand out and see and show people that we're out there working to better this effort. Now for an update on the playground spring refresher, John Lee, Community Service Chair.
On April 10th, in conjunction with Lamar University's big event where they have students participate in service projects, we're going to do a cleanup at the Rotary playground downtown. There's some dirt that needs to be moved underneath the swings where it's gotten, you know, kind of some holes there, a whole lot of mulch. I told Jackie I wanted to refer to it as a super spreader event since we're going to be spreading a lot of mulch, but she told me no. We will have some Lamar students there and then as many Rotary people. It will be at 8 o'clock on April the 10th. Hopefully we're going to have good weather that day. And so we'll make the playground, try to get it back to what it used to look like. The city will be providing dirt and mulch and some tools for us. Everybody that wishes to, please come out. I'm sure we'll send out a sign-up sheet as it gets closer. Thanks.
John, do you know if they're getting a new canopy? There's a whole canopy missing on one of the spots. Is that something they're looking into or doing?
Yeah, I can't remember if it's the blue ones or the yellow ones. They're replacing all those.
Wonderful.
But it's probably going to be a few months before they come in.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, John and Jennifer. Now to introduce our program, Karen Boudier, honorary member, and past president, Tim Sedella.
Well, it is an honor to introduce our guest speaker today, one of Beaumont's brightest who has taken her talents to the world stage. Kelli Barclay is a director, theater arts educator, and world-renowned choreographer. Ms. Barclay has performed on Broadway in performances such as 42nd Street, State Fair, White Christmas, and Ain't Broadway Grand. She also served as an assistant choreography and dance captain on 3 of those shows, earning Tony nominations for Best Choreography in the Ain't Broadway Grand and 42nd Street. Now, in addition to her work on Broadway and throughout North America, Kelli has acclaimed productions in New Zealand, Germany, Holland, and Canada. She even had the opportunity to work with Kate Middleton, the Duchess of Cambridge, in the West End production of 42nd Street. An avid dance and arts educator, Kelli helped develop the Dance Intensive and Movers Boot Camp programs for the Godspeed Opera House in Connecticut. And she is now also training to get certified as to teach dance for Parkinson's disease through the Mark Morris Dance Company Foundations. Now, not forgetting her hometown stomping grounds, we are fortunate to be able to see Ms. Barclay's choreography skills several times a year through performances of the I Rule Dance Studio located right here in Beaumont. So please help me give a welcome to the Rotary stage, Ms. Kelli Barclay presenting Making It on Broadway in the Big Apple.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Karen. How nice to be seeing so many fun faces in Beaumont, Texas. Thank you for all your service and all you do. I get such a great feeling from you all as I was listening in. It's so important right now, especially that we help each other. And that's what I'm hearing. Thank you. Thank you for getting those vaccines out. The sooner you do, the sooner my business opens back up in New York. So keep on going, Beaumont. So yes, I grew up in Beaumont, Texas, and I took from Miss Bonnie Kokonos. You may know Jimmy Kokonos was one of the longtime mayors of Beaumont and a big influence in my life. And Miss Bonnie, who primarily was a ballet dancer, used to take the dancers in theater that would come through town, through Orange, or at that time, the Jefferson, and she would invite them to come teach at the studio. So that was everything to me. And I would grill the dancers about Broadway, about New York. So you can imagine how happy I was the first time I got to go myself. So I always grew up wanting to do shows. So my senior year in high school, Forest Park, senior 1979. Yes. For experience, Miss Bonnie had me go with an older teacher who comes in and out and would teach for her to audition for a show in Dallas. It was going to be a tour, and Dallas Summer Musicals would produce big musicals, and it's a big hub for auditions, etc., that head shows to New York. Well, I went for the experience and I got it. So I was like, I mean, that's beginner's luck. So off I go my senior year on tour. And so that was my first professional taste. It was a union show. That is a different status. So I went from Trojan in the drill team and a little girl in Beaumont, Texas with a big dream in my heart, straight to a big national tour. So that was my first experience, which was fantastic. And just going back a little further, both my parents are educators, love to teach. And so I did go back to Lamar for a bit. And so I returned to Lamar for a little bit, and then I got a show. This is how it works, guys. You know somebody, they need somebody, you send in a video, and the next thing you know, you have a job. So I left and I went to Canada. And again, my parents were like, as long as you finish school, okay. So off I go to Canada, and here's this little girl in Texas who arrives on the coldest day of the year in Montreal, Quebec. It's never been that cold. I remember it was the day after Christmas, and they all thought I was fake because of my accent. They'd never heard a Texas accent. So little by little, what's funny about that story is in a month, they made me the dance captain because they saw that I had a great eye and could teach well, and people responded. So that began my journey into what I do now. I started by assisting choreographers all over, and then the next thing I know, started choreographing myself. So that's the beginning. I then moved to New York, got a big national tour of Singing in the Rain, which took me for the first time all around the country, which was such a wonderful experience for a young dancer to learn about the people of so many different states and to get to be in a professional environment with much older people to learn from them. Again, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. It was just everything. And then I moved to New York and reality set in. You don't always get everything right away, right? So back to the auditions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, on an audition. So from the tour, this is so interesting because I want to segue into internship. From the show I was in, one of the dancers was in 42nd Street on Broadway, and that begins my history with the show. Like, they were having a private audition because otherwise there's thousands of dancers that show up at once. So how they do it is they have smaller invited calls and make notes, etc. And I didn't get the Broadway show the first time, but when the revival came around, I was the assistant choreographer, and it launched an everlasting career. I've done 42nd Street all over the world, set it in London, and I worked with Kate Middleton. One of our producers of the UK production is a Lord. So he loves the arts. And so he was one of the producers and investors. And Kate Middleton grew up dancing in her hometown, loves the arts. And so I choreographed a little opening thing, and she walked in and we gave her some tap shoes. But I actually got to work with her, which was quite a wonderful experience because it's like a fairy tale over there, isn't it? So yes, right down to the lady in waiting, and I just was enamored. So, but she was lovely. And again, she really believes in the arts as I do, that that's what sustains all of us. It's more of a calling, I think, than a job. Although we're unionized, you have to do this because you love it, because the world and the business is up and down, up and down, up and down. So there's been times when I've gone show to no shows for a long time, etc. So learning resilience, sharing this with children about how when you're down to get yourself back up. I feel that when we look back on this particular experience, that's going to be something we will remember, is how we all came together to help each other. I think that's going to make an ever-loving mark on our children, and this resilience, keep going, help each other. I mean, these are fundamental things that when I was in New York, so busy running to this audition, this show, that show, kind of running past somebody. People don't run past each other in New York anymore. It's more like, how you doing? I mean, remember, we have no cars, and so we're constantly by each other, yet so protected. I've never talked to so many people in my life as through this pandemic, strangers, because we've all been so busy trying to pay our rents, etc. So that also brings me to a little bit I wanted to talk to you about. When the pandemic hit, I was at the top of my game. I was so blessed and lucky to have just closed a show here in Beaumont at iRoll, the spring show. I had an off-Broadway show running that had big plans to move on to Broadway. I was in auditions for 2 of my upcoming projects. Usually shows audition a year in advance, but I was in auditions and final callbacks for 2 different shows, and I was 1 week away from starting to rehearse a show in New York for the Lyric and Lyricist series, a very prestigious show series in New York, presented by the 92Y. They take a composer and they do a show around them, and they hire stars, movie stars. Our big star is one of the guys on This Is Us on NBC. So I was going to get to direct and choreograph that one in New York. So that's been my ultimate dream. And I'll never forget being at that audition and getting the call that the pandemic had hit. We didn't know what that meant at the time. And immediately, I actually should have known, because one of my off-Broadway shows running was produced by one of our producers. These projects, you guys now have many producers on board, but our main producer was from China. And she had 2 jets filled with producers because this show she wanted to send out internationally through Europe, through South America, through China. And they wouldn't let the jets come through. This was a week before the pandemic hit. So all of a sudden the show just closed cold turkey, which is quite telling, I think. So fast forward to the show I was in auditions for. I remember writing down on the elevator, talking to people about what's going on, because they wanted us to leave and go prepare. So you can imagine New York City trying to navigate the subway system. We just didn't know anything. And this brings me to something I want to share about how loving this community is of Beaumont, Texas, and how I'm so proud to be from here. The first call I get before I even know what's going on was from Charlie Hannah Rule from Our Rule Dance, who said, "I have a plane ticket ready for you. You need to come home now." And I'm like, what? No way. This is just going to be a week-long little interference and the show's going to go on. She's like, "No, this is going to be serious. You should come home." And I turned her down and kept working on my shows, thinking in a week it would come back, and then the rest is history. So that's a sort of brief segue into the pandemic. And also, I hope you know in your hearts, I just feel like the generosity and the kindness and the things you're trying to do as this Rotary Club, I just want you to know how much it means to people. And you may not see what you give out, but just like my 3rd grade teacher who used to sing Old Man River to us in 3rd grade, I'll never forget. He was the kindest, Mr. Simon, Sally Curtis. He would sing Old Man River, and I would just like, I want to stand on the stage and dance to that. we have such an impact. He never knew what an impact he had on my life. And I remember that to this day. So thank you, Beaumont, Texas. I would like to ask, does anybody specifically have a question about the business, the making of the shows? I want you all to come to New York, so don't forget that question.
Kelli, I appreciate you being with us today. I do have a question. What is your sense of how New York and all the other, small performing venues, how will they ramp back up? I mean, it can't be like a turn a switch and we're all going again, but what do you see moving forward?
What I see, okay, for everybody, you don't hear a lot. I mean, there's been some press about Broadway reopening. Again, get those vaccines out. If May works and everybody's vaccinated, that's going to help us along. But when you see a Broadway show, what you have to factor in is 11 unions: the actors union, the musician union, the stagehand union, the producers. There's so many unions involved. And so this is not only about the audience coming, but the nut is so high for producers, not only just because of the show and how many actors and how many dancers, but also the rent. So Broadway producers have been allowed not to pay rent to these theaters. So when we reopen, how that will look is what's being negotiated right now. So it's the rents of the theater, the safety, of course, of the audience members, the actors, the people that work backstage. And by the way, when I worked on 42nd Street on Broadway, we were about to do a reality show about what goes on off stage, because as exciting as what you see on stage, the shows can't run without a tech crew and the dressers, the people that help you quick change, the stage hands. There's so much at play. And all the producers of the reality shows, all the big networks, were interested in a story about that. So that's something you may not know about or realize when you hear Broadway, but it's just, oh, the hairdressing union. Everything has to be considered safely for not just the people on stage in the audience, but all the people that make the things work. So that's where we are. We're still in negotiation. And I know starting in April, the president of the Theater League, they're going to start small projects within the city, go and start what's called pop-ups, and try like a few actors gathering for a show here and there outside as an incentive to see, or at a theater that is well. Now remember, in New York, everything's old. Those theaters are primarily old. So it's about, how close you are together, et cetera. But they can't make their nut unless we fill those houses. So to open back up and not to fill the house, we can't pay back the investors or pay the rent. So that is where we are now. And so the good news is, I'll always say, is when there's a problem artistically, you go deeper and you find a better solution, such as The Lion King. When The Lion King was opening on Broadway, we have what's called a preview period. And during the preview period, it's where we are rehearsing during the day and then doing a show at night so that you could see the show with an audience and make changes accordingly. It's the most exciting time to see a show because you can go see it 1 week and then 2 weeks later, it's going to be different. And then when it opens officially, the show is frozen, so it no longer can change. So then you see, most people see the final product. It is the most creative time as an artist of a show because that's when the ideas are coming. And many ideas, as I'm sure you know, comes from problems. Looking within, finding a solution. So I want to compare that to The Lion King. The actors were working so hard and they were completely covered up in puppetry attire. So our union came to them, to the creative team of Lion King, and said, you can't cover them up. We can't, they're working too hard, and that became an issue. And what did Julie Taymor do? She created those incredible masks on top of their heads, of which changed theater history. So out of a problem came one of the most creative solutions that literally changed theater history. And I mean, to this, the rest is history, but you know how many Tony Awards she won, how many, that has led her to, I don't know how many Oscars, but all because of a problem. And that's what I want to look at with this. There's been so many creative solutions during this time, such as starting the virtual musical with on-site backdrops, and then also with the green screen and factoring in that. Also, I just feel that a lot of creativity is also coming out of this. One of the biggest stars I know on Broadway, Robbie Fairchild, who came from the ballet world, he most recently starred in American in Paris on Broadway. He started a florist during the pandemic just because he loves to arrange flowers. His business is booming. He said, my knees have hurt for too many years. What was I thinking? And it's just, I just want to remind everybody that our creative side will lead to something we can't imagine that might be better than what we currently know. So I keep that in mind. I know many theaters that aren't able to hold musicals now are hosting artists in a remote situation, like remotely. And the new thing is Bubble Up, as you well know from television shows starting back up. 2 weeks together, make sure everybody's clean, and then start filming. That's how the film industry is starting to emerge with their protocol. They're doing that for artists to write new musicals. So I think that that's a wonderful gift theaters can do in the meantime. Also, you guys can go to Broadway HD online and watch anything you want. Many, many musicals are available there. My show, 42nd Street, that I set in London, was filmed we played the movie houses. There's a documentary, by the way, right after, which features me and the producer and the director. So if you happen to see it on PBS, it's going to re-air on PBS. They're going to show 42nd Street that we filmed 2 years ago. So I hope you could catch that. But what's really fun, and I think you'll enjoy, is the documentary after, to see how things are done, the audition process, how many costumes and how quickly they can change in 30 seconds, how the staircase emerges, all the theater magic that you don't think about when you're just sitting in a theater enjoying a musical. So that's a long way to say we're on the road, but we're not there yet, Tim. I will add one more thing. Some of our contracts were delayed. Others, like Frozen on Broadway, Mean Girls, they're not going to reopen. Phantom will come back. It's harder for the bigger musicals, of course, because there's so many people on stage, and that affects the weekly nut for the producers. You will see a lot of emerging of smaller musicals at the forefront. And also, you'll see a lot of us go to other countries that have reopened for work, such as Australia, that has no disease at this time. So they've started small. Come From Away is there. There's negotiations for bigger musicals. They're going small and then increasing. So, and then what we're doing is trying to film for this time period so that theater stays out for everyone to enjoy. And if you look at history, that's when those movie musicals were so popular. During the Depression, when things weren't happy in the world, that's when everybody wants to turn on a big splashy musical, forget your troubles for 2 hours, right? And then, so that I want to make sure that everybody understands, we're with so much social media and so much opportunity now, we're trying to use that to keep theater going until you get to sit in the seats and enjoy it live. Because we all know there's nothing like sitting in the audience live to hear a symphony play, to see a musical, to witness a ballet. And as always, this is the second time I've been in New York for a closing. The first one was 9/11. So Broadway's closed, I think, 7 times in its history. The first time was in 1917 during the Spanish flu. But funny enough, they did it covered. Broadway continued and people just covered up, but it closed because of union reasons. It happened again in the 60s, just for a couple days. Broadway never shuts down, by the way. It's just so unique. Then in 75, there was I believe it was a musician strike that shut it down for almost a month. And then in 9/11. So that was me there for 9/11. So at the time, our mayor was Rudy Giuliani, and he demanded that 2 people from each show, me as resident choreographer, 42nd Street, and my production stage manager, who's in charge of the whole company, we represented my show, and all of us had to meet at the theater with him. And he looked us in the eye and said, in 2 days, New York is reopening every restaurant, every show. You're going to smile, and we're going to get through this, because he knew the city's economy needed it to continue. So as you know, artistes are so dramatic. You can imagine how taxing that was, because it's hard to hide your feelings. But what we did, my producers decided to do, is we opened it up for all the firemen, any worker downtown, them and their family, and anybody related could just come to the show for free. And that's how we kept Broadway going. And my show survived, many did not. But it does take us all pulling together, which I think just this alone, this experience of the Rotary and us on Zoom is showing that that we are together. I saw it once, and then 2 days later, we were back 9/11, and then this. So it's very rare, but it's coming back, you guys. It's coming back full swing. And I hope you all come.
For any of the Rotary members who may have a child or a grandchild who has that same yearning that you had, you know, to get to break into Broadway, what would be your advice to them to give to their children or young children?
You know, this goes not only with theater and dance. Dance company work is slightly different, but this also goes, this is my own experience, and I want to talk about internship. Like I see this so much. A few of the directors that I've worked for in the city in New York started out as, it's not an intern, but it's equivalent to it, as like assistant directing. So it's not like say a lot of money, but it's great hands-on experience. Well, now I'm working for them. I mean, it's same for CBS. They accept internships. Well, 2 interns I know from CBS. Now they do I know that they produce segments on CBS Sunday Morning. The internship program, same for me. When I did that first tour, the connections I made led to knowing others that just helped my career the whole way. Of course, you have to have the goods, but learning the ropes seems to be the new normal. And I see that more and more out of the college programs. They're offering internships, and I wanted to tell you guys about it because I know firsthand how valuable it is, not just in theater, but as I see it within, like when I work in television or in industrial work, which I do a lot of that is like for AT&T will have a big meeting at the end of the year coming up in Dallas. And they used to do shows as they present their new products and their industrial. So that's a big part of my industry is industrial work. But all those people that used to assist the producers are now producers. So really think about that when you hear, and all those opportunities to volunteer, like Jacob's Pillow is a dance festival that takes volunteers. All those people now work for Jacob's Pillow. It's just easier when you've been trained to train somebody you know, isn't it? Than to start from scratch. So I see that more and more coming through the field. And it's something that wasn't there really when I started. And I just think it's very, very valid. So that would be number 1. Number 2, again, I'll say, this is a calling. I danced to everything I saw on television, made up stories in my head, etc. Just, you can't make yourself not do that. So you have to love it. I would suggest that if you want a career in the arts, you have to understand that you're not going to be a millionaire. You're not going to be chasing the $1 million model. Again, most of us would do this for nothing if there were no money. So with that, you have to remember that most of it is resilience. So for instance, I know people that art feels like you're putting your art out there when you audition. And so if you're rejected, you might take that personally, but it's not personal. What people don't understand when they go to audition for a musical, for instance, the first time I auditioned for 42nd Street, I didn't fit the costumes. Those costumes are millions of dollars. There's like 25 costumes each for each female dancer. The show only had 2 months to run. For a union show, they have to build your own shoes, your own dance shoes. That's like $500 a pair of shoes. So they're not going to find somebody that they need to rebuild when they knew the show wasn't long to last. So there's things that you don't think about. It is not personal at all. And that's something I didn't know when I started out. I thought it was a reflection. Oh, it must mean I'm not a great dancer. Not at all. You don't see the pieces of the puzzle. I need a soprano, not an alto. You think when you're auditioning, oh, I didn't get it. I dance better than her. How did I not get it? But you don't understand. She could cover the lead and looks just like her. Does that make sense? So all these factors you never think about as an artist. So I want to make sure that if you have grandchildren or children or anybody, you understand that there's so much more than meets the eye. And for instance, if you go, biggest advice I give to young dancers all over, if you're going to go to 3 auditions, the chances are much greater that you won't get them. If you go to 100 auditions, you're going to get something. So put yourself out there, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going. Keep going. So that's the biggest advice I could give. Yeah, and always study your craft. But you know, it's not work when you love it, is it?
I have a question.
Hi.
Hi. My nephew is a Broadway performer. And when you talked about it being a calling and being resilient, that's him. I mean, my sister's asked him 100 times, do you want to come home to Houston? Why would I do that? This is what I love to do. He graduated from Boston Conservatory and then said, I'm going to give it a shot. And he stayed. But during the pandemic, my question to you is this. We're talking thousands of people whose profession just went away overnight. He got a job just because he had to get a job, not in anything that he loves to do. What is happening to all these people? Have they had to leave, or some of them going to be coming back, or what's going on with all of those people who suddenly saw their careers just put on hold for a year?
Yes, that's a great question. And it's Boston Conservatory, by the way, I've taught there many times. Great school. Does he sing, dance, and act? Do I need his resume? One of my shows just closed.
He does it all. He does all of it. And of course, I'm prejudiced. I think he's fabulous, but he's one of thousands, of course. So he does what you said. He does every audition that he can possibly do,
Good.
hoping that he'll get something.
And you know what? The very first time I auditioned, just a story that you'll pass on. What launched my career, I auditioned for a show that I didn't get, but the choreographer hired me for a show he was doing. So you just never know. This is why you have to always put yourself out there. It's the connections. Now what they have in show business, shows hire casting directors. And casting directors are responsible for getting talent in the room. Like they have a file. These are great tap dancers. These are great ballet dancers. These are great people that sing, dance, and act, and they could cover these, etc. So they have files of people. I mean, casting directors, just being seen by casting director, you don't know what that leads to so much. And what I will tell him, and this is what most of my people have done. First of all, if it wasn't Zoom, we'd all be broke because everybody's teaching Zoom. Thank you, Zoom. Thank you, Zoom. So thankful for that. And I've been lucky to do a few virtual musicals. And I've been lucky to come to Beaumont, Texas and work for iRule and do a couple shows for them. I'm so glad. But getting out of the city right now and going where the work is. There's a theater in Arizona that's trying to open it up next week, small, just to see. It's a non-union project now, but what will it become? I mean, people are going to where the work is. I have all my interviews are out of the country for projects coming up. I call this in the meantime, but that's what I noticed. Like, because we just opened to 50% capacity at restaurants here in New York. So, we are behind the scale. I love hearing about the vaccination program down there. I myself got vaccinated there, double vaccinated, but many of my friends in New York haven't. We're not there yet. It's only 50 and up. It's slower up north for whatever reason. So the logical thing is to go where the work is, because you know what? Art is art, isn't it? And it's just, I'd much rather be doing this than, and I'll do whatever I have to do to survive, as we all will. But I would suggest to him, keep the feelers out in other places besides New York, and then hurry back and send me his resume. Truly, all my shows have been put on hold. And I was telling Tim and Karen yesterday, and Jackie, one of my shows just posted for May. It was too early, but it's a theater in the Round, and they couldn't, right outside of Boston, North Shore Music Theater, fantastically well-known, Tony-winning regional theater, and it's outdoors. So they've pushed the season back. And so my show, which is the big splashy musical that was opening the season, will not come till next May, 2022. But they're on for Christmas. And you can imagine sitting in a Round theater, how the safety protocols are triple, because there's no, everybody's right on top of each other. So they're working out that. Everybody's got their own individual issue. A Goodspeed Opera House, which is another Tony Award winning theater that I've worked at. I've done 8 shows there. They develop new musicals as well as do a revival, Reinvented. And they are one of the theaters that are hosting artists for new projects. They're also did I was involved with something they did virtual, which every theater is. They're now showing their shows on demand through social media, getting that out there. But their model is you have to go up elevators to the theater. The theater sits on the river. So that's a tiny elevator. To do that distance has postponed them a bit. So everybody has their own unique scenario to consider. And in the meantime, we're thankful for social media and Zoom and all that to continue the best we can.
Karen again. Yesterday when we were doing the run through, you mentioned a little bit about White Christmas, but you hadn't talked about that today. So.
Oh, okay. So I am associate choreographer for Irving Berlin's White Christmas, and it's the longest running tour of a Christmas show, and it will be in Texas, and you guys hopefully will get to see it very soon. We started in San Francisco, and then we went to Broadway, and the year it went to Broadway, there were 3 other companies, LA, Boston, Broadway, and Detroit, all at the same time. So that was fun getting to work on that. And it's just continued on every year. So I want you guys to look out for that. I'm sure it will be coming to the Letcher once we reopen. And I'm thinking because of this, Letcher's huge, right? And there's a lot of space in Texas. We'll get shows through here. I'm thinking the shows will be able to come in venues such as Texas with a lot of space and a lot of capability. Also, outdoor shows are about to blossom big time. The Miller Theater in Houston, they're considering plans, looking into what opportunities, because it's outside. So the summertime, if you guys continue your good work with the shots here in the Rotary Club in Texas, I hope to see Miller do really well in Houston, because that's a wonderful, if you've never been there, it's in Herman Park, and they do wonderful Broadway productions. They bring in tours through Tut's Theater Under the Stars, and it's open for the ballet companies as well to take advantage of Miller Outdoor. So I have great hopes that they will bounce back soon. Also, does anybody have any other questions? I have a question. How would you feel about going to New York? Just as a resident who has friends in the tourism business, what are your thoughts? I'd love to hear.
I'm almost fully vaccinated. Once I get 2 weeks past that, I'm going to feel a lot more confident about traveling.
That's so interesting, because I talked to some friends of mine who are casting agents, and they told me to ask you guys. It helps, I think input, because of my director choreographer union, I think some input from people that would potentially go would be nice to have.
Kelly, what if I went right now, what could I do? I think that would be a question because we don't know. I mean, are the stores open? Are
Things are limited.
restaurants are at 50%, Broadway is that's closed. So what would you tell us that we could do when we get there?
Well, it's limited. You do have, it's very limited at this time, but the goal for the overall city is the summer, is to try to get more and more stores open and more things available. You know, it's entertainment wise, there is nothing I can suggest now.
Yeah, I think my feedback would be when y'all are ready, we're ready.
I love it.
Because I think down here we're ready to go, but y'all aren't ready for us. So when y'all are ready, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get out of here.
Great, I understand that. Yeah, for all of us, right? We're ready to travel. I mean, I really miss, because I work so much abroad. That's a limitation that I miss. You know, that's not happening. I don't even know. And you know, it's so funny. Think of perspective about this. Like if we had known it would have been, we never thought it was I thought it was going to be 2 weeks. I was still working on my shows in my apartment, thinking we were going to pick right up. Like it's funny how you know, having to see the big picture would have been overwhelming. And little by little, I feel that what we talked about before, the creative solutions have come. And I want y'all to know that I'm giving this input. So anything anybody wants to offer, like any concerns you may have, like we have meetings through our actors union, for my director choreographers union. I think it's really important because you guys are who feed us. You are our bread and butter of our city. And just to hear that you would consider to come is like amazing. But would you all just in general, like the summer, how would people feel like?
I don't know if I'd come this summer. That seems a little early, but one of the best memories of my life is seeing The Lion King in New York with my grandchildren. So going to New York is something that will always be, but I think that, especially since I have a nephew there, so I can tell you that we would go see him for sure. But I think summer for me, and I've been vaccinated, seems a little early, because I agree with Jennifer. I think when y'all are ready, then we're ready.
Yes, yes. And I think what I'm hearing from you is what I'm going to see the model is. It's going to push to the fall, I believe. And then by then the kinks are worked out. You know, the kinks are worked out. Part of the issue I know, you know, as business owners, part of the cost of the safety protocols are so high. And it's just like, just even providing masks for everybody, for all the stores, for all the businesses. And they provide it in New York for all of them. It's, there's just so much more money involved to factor in. So I know that it would be that when we do open up, it would be essential that we've got it down so that people continue to come and we're not still trying to work out kinks. You know, the other thing I wanted to say is, has anybody seen Hamilton?
No.
Perchance? Hamilton, the big hit. Yes. Well, see, I think part of it, as we know, it's such a sensation. Like, what about the small shows? They're all going to want to go to Hamilton and then not see the small show. Like they're trying to work out, like maybe let something run 3 days and another show to try to spread the wealth, if you will. But what I wanted to tell you about that is, I don't know if you know this, but Lin-Manuel, the producer of White Christmas, initially also produced In the Heights. Lin-Manuel wrote that as well. And I remember meeting him right out of school. He wrote this musical. I mean, now he is Lin-Manuel of Hamilton. This is so interesting how my teacher affected my life and how we each affect each other's life. His dad was a history teacher. He grew up just loved listening to history. And look what he did. He wrote Hamilton. I mean, I just think that, again, in my busy life in New York, I didn't have time to think of this. But as it's gone on, like the simple things, such as talking to the neighbors on the street, I'm going to tear up, but it's like we somehow lost connection, yet we're more connected. I don't know. It really touches me, that story, because it hones into me that I could affect somebody and it will change that child's life when they're older. And it's something I wouldn't have thought about before because we were so busy doing. So I don't know. I'm just looking for the blessings every day and remembering too that there's nothing like the first thing I did when the first show I got to do was a virtual musical at Goodspeed after the pandemic. And it's like everything that I used to dread, the hard parts of the musicals, I was so joyful doing because I was so thankful to be back and be a part of. And I don't know, I just think there's a higher meaning somehow in that. And I give gratitude and thanks to God for opening my eyes, because I plan to carry that with me. We're forever changed by these little things. And hopefully we will bring that and create a better future. I also want to say something in regards to theater and in regards to our role. This is why I love Charlie Hannah Rule, who I've known for 30 years. Every kid is involved. Anybody who wants to be in the show, one of her shows, gets to be a part of it. Now, that's not the normal model. You maybe not, you don't have the dancer legs or this or that. I just feel in general, art saves people. It just, whatever it is, it does. It helps you escape. It helps you express. That's why it's never going away. And that's why your nephew will be back to New York. You just can't, it's not the easiest life in general, but it's so rewarding. I remember I never even walked through Central Park until the pandemic, really, through Central Park. I have seen such art on the sidewalks, just people express, things, gorgeous things that I saw George Floyd carved in a rock in the middle of the North Woods where people look at the birds. Like somebody just went and carved it. It was gorgeous. Artists have to express, and they will find a way to do that wherever they are. And so that is why the resilience comes into play, but it doesn't go away, does it? That drive. Yeah.
Kelli, I want to thank you for joining us today. There's a couple more questions in the chat. If you don't mind staying just a few minutes after, I'm going to go ahead and close this up. And so those that need to leave at 1 can.
God bless you all. For those that are leaving, God bless you all. It's been my absolute pleasure and a blessing to have connected. And thank you for all the work you do in this community.
Well, you've said so many things today that resonated with us. Resilience, connections, community, creative solutions that come out of problems, keep going, and talking about all the parts that have to come together just to make a show work, and working together. And finally, art saves people. And I think you were spot on with that. So we want to thank you for taking Texas to the world. In your honor, we'll be making a donation to the Rotary Foundation. That does make a difference all around the world. So we thank you so much for joining us. Just to cover a few announcements before we do our 4-way test. We have the Layette project tomorrow, 4 o'clock if you're going to carry heavy stuff down, 4:30 if you're going to count out all those t-shirts and everything and get them rolled out and ready to go, and then 5:30 if you want to be there to help us put the bags together. The Beaumont Health Department will be sending you an email if you signed up for the COVID vaccine distribution project on Monday, and we have flags also on Monday, 5 o'clock at the Boy Scout hut. Our next speaker will be Marco Bourne, Director of Athletics at Lamar University. So get your game day shirt on and let's show some LU pride. And let's close this meeting together with the 4-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth?
Is it the truth?
Second, is it fair
Is
to
it
all
fair all concerned?
Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships?
For better friendships.
And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you for attending Rotary today. Go out and find opportunities to lead and serve. If you'll stay just a few minutes, if you had a question in the chat, Kelli said she'd be glad to answer that. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. One of the questions was about the museums opening.
Yes.
If you know anything about that.
Yeah. Limited capacity, and that'll continue. Yeah. They're working real hard on that. And you guys, if you haven't, again, don't miss that. Don't miss that when you go to New York. So many times I did because of my own agenda. and it's just something to behold. So please factor that in time for that. Yeah.
And the other question was, if someone new in the Broadway business wants to network with you, what's the best way to contact you?
Through my website, kellybarclay.com.
Okay, sounds great. I think that's got about all of it. You've got everybody interested in coming to New York now, so keep us posted.
In the meantime, see a show locally. See a show locally, everybody. Let's support each other.
Hey, Kelly. Kelly.
Yes.
My wife does the kid program at Beaumont Community Players. And one of the things that is a real concern is getting people backstage in a real theater to see the nuts and bolts that you're talking about. See how the pros do it? You know, you can take a theater tour, but you really don't get what goes on. How can or can that be made available? Because we send kids to New York all the time, the kids that want to get into musical theater programs or other theater programs and do that in their graduate studies or university. How can we get that done and feed it back down to the local folks?
Whoa, I think through a reality show. It was a great idea. Like, I mean, until people know how things work, they're not going to know. They're never going to see the magic. Like they're never, and it's, you know what else? When you get children involved, like one of the theater programs that I love in Houston is called HITS. They just did a virtual show because our union wouldn't let them. Anyway, they did Frog and Toad, and all the children had, maybe you guys already do this. They all did some technical aspect of the show, build the sets, make the props, etc., to try to explain it to the children and get them run the lights. There's so many more things than what you see on the stage that may interest a child. Like a good lighting, you're only as good as your lighting designer. Yeah. We all need a good lighting designer, don't we? That is so understated, but a show's look is completely depends on the lighting design. It does, but nobody thinks about that until you don't have it, right? So I think that's a great question. And it's something, if you don't mind, that I would like to share to my unions, because maybe that's an avenue that could be explored on a bigger global scale. Like some show, even on PBS, one of my friends is a producer on PBS, to show how that stuff works would really inform and be so interesting to everybody.
I agree.
Sing and dance.
Because that's what we do. Every kid that comes in gets something.
That's wonderful.
And the kids that are interested work on other kid shows because they're divided into 4 or 5 groups. And then there's a show that's done for disabled kids where you have a shadow and the performer. And so, getting it to a higher level and making it a little better by showing them what the pros do would be really helpful. If you could make that accessible, we sure would appreciate it.
Great. Jay, you can make sure, Jackie and Karen and Tim, they have my email. Reach out to me anytime and I'll make sure and get to you if I find anything helpful and send it your way.
Thank you so much.
Is the program back and going now during the pandemic?
Well, they've done a couple of things. One, they did 2 shows that were spaced. One of them was about COVID, was written for COVID, and Beaumont Community Players did the premiere, and it's now online and accessible. They're doing one show. It's a one-woman show that's going to open the 8th or 9th of April. And then it's a gradual process. But the kid program got shut down this summer. But kids, they're hungry for it.
They're hungry, and they're tired of Zoom. They need to be active. They're tired of Zoom. They really are. We know this. Yes, Jay, y'all are the future because things are opening up here. And the safety models are very effective here because, again, I attribute in New York, we're on top of each other, but there's space here. People get in their cars and drive to the stores. You're not in line. And my building, God forbid you forget your mask walking out the front door. I love it, but it has to be strict it just has to be. It's just a different way of living because of space. So I would really suggest that you guys really tune into what you just asked me. Put it out there all over because something will come because the world is waiting for the way to do it and the answer.
Well,
And
I
it'll
agree.
come if we ask.
And the more people try different things and figure out what works, and this group down here has worked and worked and worked to try to figure that out. They're having a board meeting this evening, as a matter of fact, to try to figure out what to do next. So,
Well, I wish them well.
I'm just the minion.
I love it. Thank you, Dave. Yes.
Well, Kelly, you had a lot of really, really encouraging comments in the chat section if you have opportunity to look at that. But thank you so much for just what a fun meeting this was today. Now you have us all excited and ready to go.
Good. Come to New York. Go see us. I want to tell you something about art. Those two over there in that corner, Tim and Karen, their photography is out of this world. And I'm not just saying that. You can ask Charlie. I even know who did which photo. I can tell. But that's artistic. Like, they each have their own point of view. That's why, again, we each have our own unique way to say something, don't we? And I want to make sure that social media doesn't get in the way of that, especially for our children, because it's easy to do this and not go outside and think of write a song, you know, look at nature. What do you think about it? Like, we want to try to keep art alive. Thank you again.
Those dancing feet on the avenue, I'm taking you to 42nd Street. Little nifties from the 50s, innocent and sweet. Sexy ladies from the 80s who are in disarray. They're side by side, they're glorified. Where the underworld can meet the elite. 42nd